Welcome. As you're coming in, we'll get started in just a minute here. We've got a large audience today. It's great to have you join us. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll still have a few more people trickling in here. So hi, everyone. I am Mary Beth Stibbins, and I'm really glad you're here. I lead our National Core Organizing Team at Braver Angels. And today we're diving into something big, Meeting the Moment, a post-State of the Union Fishbowl event. This is a space where two red-leaning Braver Angel groups who do not see eye to eye on the Trump administration get to share their views in a thoughtful, respectful way. No demonizing, no gotcha moments, just real, thoughtful, honest, human-to-human talking and sharing of views. Showing up for this event takes courage and a willingness to lean in, to listen, and to recognize that even within our own political camps, there's nuance and complexity, and people don't fit into neat little boxes. Today is not about debating who's right and who's wrong. It's about hearing each other, really hearing each other, not to score points, not to agree, just to try to understand better. The folks in today's fishbowls have stepped up to speak about their hopes, their worries, their lived experiences. And the rest of us, our job is to listen, not to prepare a counterpoint, not to tally up who made the best case, but just to take it in, to reflect. And that's not always easy. It takes effort and it takes humility. And it takes believing that understanding one another, especially when it's hard, is worth it. I want to give a shout out to all the observers today. We have a really big audience of observers representing a wide range of political perspectives. And I just want to acknowledge all of you. Today's event is in a webinar format, which means observers won't interact with speakers or be able to post in the chat, ask questions, or be on video. So observer roles are to listen, reflect, and learn. And I know that, there's times when you really want to jump in and be heard, and it's hard when you can't. If you're feeling the urge to share your perspective, to challenge or clarify something, I understand. And I want you to know that your voice also matters. And there are many more opportunities in Braver Angels for you to engage more directly. And we'd love for you to be a part of them. We'll share a link at the end where you can explore those options. So hang in there. There's going to be a place for you too. And this is just the first of many events. Another note before we begin, conversations like this can stir things up. You might feel challenged, frustrated, fired up, and that's okay. That's human. If you find yourself getting tense, take a breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Remind yourself why you're here. At the end of the day, we are more than our political identities. We're parents and neighbors, brothers and sisters, workers and friends, classmates and colleagues. We're people who love this country and want to see it move forward in a way that honors what we hold dear. Some of what you hear today might resonate. Some of it might shake you up. Some of it might be completely baffling. And that's okay too, because polarization doesn't disappear in one conversation. But you know what? This right here is how we start. So I invite you to bring your best self into this space. Listen not just to respond, but to understand. Be generous in spirit, humble in conviction, and open to wherever this takes us. So here's how this is going to work. Our guiding question for today is, what are the hopes and concerns red-leaning Braver Angels have about the Trump administration and its policies? So we have two red-leaning fishbowl groups. We have supporters of the new Trump administration and its policies, and we have non-supporters of the new Trump administration and its policies. So each group is going to take turns in our Zoom fishbowls while the other group listens deeply. And after both groups have spoken, they're going to move into a reflection process. So even within each fishbowl group, you'll hear a variety of perspectives. At some point, you'll probably feel uncomfortable, and that's good. Discomfort means we're stretching our understanding. Stay open, stay curious. Notice where you might see some common ground or perhaps just a few common threads with someone whose political world and political reality may seem totally different from yours. And hey, if you've ever survived rush hour traffic, you already know how to handle this conversation. You stay in your lane, signal when needed, resist the urge to lay on the horn, and just like on the road, it helps to remember we may be taking different routes, but we're all trying to get to a better place. So, our wonderful moderators today are Paul Norris and April Chatham Carpenter. And so, with that, let's dive in over to you, April and Paul.
I'm so excited to be here, Mary Beth, and thank you for setting this up so wonderfully. I'm looking forward to learning from people who are different than me and similar to me as we move forward in this fishbowl. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been active in Braver Angels since 2020. I primarily work as a moderator and also as a co-chair of the Braver Angels Event Development Delivery Steering Team, and have been very active in the work in Arkansas as well. A fun fact about myself is that I have two adopted daughters.
And I guess you're handing that off to me. I'm in San Francisco, California. I took this picture behind me, which is taken from Sutro Park, overlooking the ocean. I've been in Braver Angels. Uh, I was like not of one of the very first, but kind of like the first big wave of people, I think. So I think that's 2016, 2017, and moderator, debate chair. I have a lot of different roles in Braver Angels, ambassador. Um, when did I'm glad I'm retired. When did I ever have time to work? I don't know how I ever managed to do that. Fun fact about myself. So I have three granddaughters, uh, uh, 11, 9, and 8. And no, I'm sorry, that's 13, 13, 11, and 8. And they're all jocks, software jocks and karate jocks. And at this point, I suspect that any one of them could probably kick my butt. Maybe the 8-year-old couldn't yet. I don't know. But other than that, any of them probably could. And since I'm going to see him this evening, I have to really behave myself, make sure that doesn't happen. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the ground rules for this activity. So we're here to understand and explain, not convince. Don't expect anybody to change your mind here, although miracles do occasionally happen. Speak for yourself. Don't try to speak for a group of people. Stick to the spirit of the activity. So that should be pretty easy. I mean, there's really only two activities in this thing. There's fishbowl and then the follow-up. So please, when we're doing the follow-up and we ask you, what did you learn? What did you enjoy? Please try to refrain from, making that one last point that you just felt like you had to make it. You didn't manage to get it in. Please refrain from that. Let's just, try to stick to the thing that we're asking for. So speak respectfully of each other. You don't have to speak respectfully of everybody on earth, but do speak respectfully of each other, yourself and the people in the other, your fishbowl and the other fishbowl. And, stuff that we supposedly learned in kindergarten and then kind of forgot, taking turns, don't interrupt people, listening to everybody, opening up space for quieter people, being respectful, kind of like, controlling the body language, it's not like, we try to avoid, things like this or, stuff like that, or holding up, signs, let's not do that. Let's show respect, in body language and, every other way. So do we as facilitators have permission to gently help people when maybe they get a little bit kind of like out of line of what we're trying to do here? I will take that as a yes. April,
Yeah. So one thing, just to remind you, all of us who are on the call, including Paul and myself, are Reds. So we just have different perspectives, perhaps, on things. So just to remember that as you're listening. All right. So these are some instructions for those who are going to be in the fishbowl at any given time. When you are in the fishbowl, so these are our participants that are on the screen now that you see. Make sure you address your comments only to those in the fishbowl with you, not to the other group. Also, focus on your own position and let other people describe theirs rather than just assuming that you think you know what they mean. Don't speak for your whole side or attempt to speak for others, just speak for yourself. One additional guideline for those inside the fishbowl is that you talk only about your own side and not the other side. For example, instead of, you would avoid saying, unlike the other side, my side believes in responsible government leadership. You can just speak for your own side because that makes it hard for the other group to really listen to what you're saying. And then, of course, just stick to describing your own views.
Yeah, so let's get started. Introduce yourself. We kind of showed you, we gave examples. So introduce yourself, your name, where you live, and a fun fact about yourself. And we're going to talk about, what are your hopes for the Trump administration and its policies, and what are your concerns? And, people can lead off, but then we can get into a conversation. Who'd like to start?
I'm happy to start if you like.
Go ahead, Holly.
My name's Holly Ray Bonney. I live in Stansbury Park, Utah. And some fun, interesting about me is my oldest is having his birthday today. He's turning 15. And I have a son and a daughter, and we're celebrating him here shortly. But I thought it was so important to be here. This means a lot to me. You want me to go into my hopes now with this?
Why don't we
Or do
just
we
do
do
introductions
introduction?
first, and then
Okay.
we'll start with hopes.
But I'm honored to be here and be here with all of you. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you.
Had to get my video sound on. Yeah, I live in Northern California, Mendocino County, Ukiah. Been in Braver Angels since 2019. In fact, Paul was the red chair of that workshop. One of my mentors in psychology was the blue chair who invited me. Fun fact, my daughter, we just visited my daughter and family in New Zealand. I have two grandkids over there, 13 and 11. So anything else?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, Dan?
Hi, my name is Dan Messina. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I joined Braver Angels in November of 2020. Um, During the lockdowns, I discovered the joy of cooking. So I've been enjoying it ever since. So I just love to do it now.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Scott?
Hi, everyone. My name's Scott Pell. I live in Martinsville, Indiana. Fun fact about me, I'm a United States Chess Federation tournament director and also a volunteer scholastic chess coach.
Thank you. Thank you. Kim?
Good morning. I'm
Uh,
Kim Tafiti. That's like the island of Tahiti with an F. I picked that name up from my husband, who was born and raised in Samoa. We have three beautiful children, ages 28 to 10. And fun fact about me is that I spend a lot of time in a virtual reality headset because I am the owner and CEO of a company that provides virtual reality education where school happens in the virtual realm. And I'm really happy to be here. I too am from Tooele County, Utah. Hello, Holly. And looking forward to our discussion today.
Thank you. Thank you. Kevin?
Kevin Bolton. I am in Dallas, Texas. I've been in Braver Angels for, I'm thinking 2 years, something like that. I really enjoy it. Uh, Fun fact, I think it's fun. Um, whatever discussion we have today will be less than my granddaughter's being upset yesterday, which we handled. And it's just so interesting not having perspective what she thinks is going on. And it's the first time I've seen her like that. So, but it's all wonderful. So look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Will.
I'm Wilk Wilkinson, host of the Do You Hate the Hate podcast. I've been part of Braver Angels now since early 2021, late 2020, something like that. I guess I can't remember for sure. Part of the Braver Angels, We the People's Project, Truth and Trust Project, support team. Wear a lot of hats in the organization. And fun fact, anybody that doesn't know, I run the Do You Hate the Hate podcast, and that is actually how I came to Braver Angels. With Braver Angels came to me because of the podcast, and it's been quite a ride ever since. So,
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Sulani.
Hi, I'm Sulani Madsen. I live on a small ranch in outside the village of Edwell, Washington, west of the city of Spokane. Have enjoyed and am enjoying three careers: architect, rancher, and journalist. And a fun fact about me is that starting May 15th, we have 100 goats that will be giving birth.
Wow. All right.
That's a lot of kids.
Oh,
Yes, it is. We have a just kidding party to celebrate.
Okay, so now we come to the second part. What are your hopes for the Trump administration and its policies, and what concerns, if any, do you have? And I would like to encourage people. I mean, sure, make your points, bring up the things that matter to you, but let's not have speeches, and let's try to interact with each other a little bit. So, who would like to lead us off? Hopes and concerns.
I'd like to go. My hopes for the Trump administration is that we can continue with America First policies. I hope that most importantly that we go forward with transparency within our government, that we stay compliant with the United States Constitution and federal law, and that we can be a beacon to the world with peace through strength, and that the American citizens get the benefit of having a transparent government in which they are in control as much as they can be, and represented in this republic that we have as it turns 250 in the next year. My concern is that our current Senate and House may not get all these executive orders into law that are so crucial for generations to come, so that it's not just a flash in a pan of 2025 is this big start in this second administration of Trump, this first 100 days. We don't get it secure with law, I worry we could lose it. So I hope to keep the momentum going, and on behalf of my children and grandchildren, that we have a freer America and a more prosperous one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Hopes and concerns.
I'll go, Paul. I have a small ask of the Trump administration. Just restoration of federalism and representative constitutional government. That's all. And I think of James Madison's quote on this. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. It's done a fantastic job of controlling us, but a hideous job of controlling itself. So at the heart of it, I believe it's an all too powerful administrative state. And what I mean by an administrative state is the consolidation of power of the federal agencies within the executive branch. So I think I look at presidents as having a moral obligation and a constitutional duty to massively reduce the power of the administrative state. because it violates so much of what we were meant to be founded on. It violates so many of our own rights and squashes us, basically. So that's my hope. My concern is similar to Holly's, where all the steps to dismantle or simplify or reorganize the administrative state and make government more transparent and accountable will be undone if reforms are not codified into law by Congress, and Congress must take their power back.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's really about it.
I like to follow on that because that gets to one of my hopes, which is that I hope that this wakes Congress up to retake power that they have too readily shifted to the executive branch, and that we've seen the executive branch grow and grow, and really it's Lincoln started it with Civil War, and FDR expanded it, and it needs some serious pruning. And as any gardener knows, plants can be more vigorous when they're properly pruned. My hope for the Trump administration is for any presidential administration is that we have a successful uh, we have a successful country. We have people who are successful and flourishing, and that we are doing the best that we can with what we have. And I would I don't wish ill will on any presidential administration, but I'm really hoping Congress steps up. I am still convinced that this level of quick action and disruption is what it would take, what it will take to modify in a long term with long term effects the administrative state and the overregulation and the federal bureaucracy. The federal bureaucracy needed to be shaken up. My fear is that there is a time to build and a time to tear down and a time to build, and I catching that wave when they've got to the point of enough tearing down is and it's time to start building again. That's my fear that they miss that point. And I do understand that this is hard on a lot of people. There are a lot of individual stories and people in my own family who work for the federal government for whom this is a tough time. But anybody who's been through any kind of corporate reorganization, company reorganization knows that this is not unusual. It's just this is a very, very big, and that's the point. It's too big corporation that is running too much.
Thank you. Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go, Paul, if that's all right.
Sure.
I'd like to actually build upon and back up, what Dan and Sue just said. I think it's incredibly important that our government goes back to operating the way that it was supposed to operate instead of an all-powerful executive branch, going back to its roots of co-equal branches of government. And then also, to Dan's point, the concept of federalism and empowering the people, we the people in this country, to take care of our own initiatives in many ways, and not depend on the federal government to be everything for everybody. My hopes for this administration is to really build upon that idea of breaking down unnecessary regulation, unleashing the ingenuity and vigorous public that this country, I believe, was built upon. One of the things that made this country great. My concern is there are a lot of people out there who think that the Make America Great Again thing, or they've taken that in a way that really bothers me, in the sense that I don't think you can make something great again that ceased to be great in the first place. America is great because of its people, not because of its government. America is great because of its people being good, and the American people are good. And the only way to keep America great is to empower the individual to do the incredible things that they have done since the inception of this country. So I do have incredible hopes for this administration, and what it's able to do. I agree with Sue in that I've had many conversations with many people in recent weeks about the horrors that come along with the dismantling of some of these federal programs. But it's an incredible point, and it's one thing that people have to remember that this will happen with any business that is on its way to whether it be bankruptcy or some other kind of disaster. Things need to change. Things are going to change. And this may be the only way that they ever would change without a complete collapse. So, great hopes for what could be, can be, and hopefully will be.
Thank you. Thank you. Who'd like to speak up next?
I can.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, great. So I'm going to re-echo much of what everyone else has said here in terms of my hopes, in that I really hope the Trump administration maintains an eye on liberties, the liberties of citizens of the nation, that we, as we're putting forth legislation, both, from the executive branch and from Congress, that it's done through the lens of maintaining the liberties and aligning with the constitutions. I'm very much in alignment with that. My fear is that the Trump administration may lose sight of the human factor of things, recognizing that change does need to occur. But change is absolutely happening to real people and it's impacting their lives. So I would hope some compassion. I would hope to see some compassion in that. But again, keeping an eye to maintaining our liberties, giving rights back to the states, federalism, and really staying in alignment with the spirit in which the Constitution was written in the first place.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Who would like to speak up who we haven't heard yet?
I'll go. Um, I guess the number one thing that I'd like to see out of the Trump administration is to continue getting the sort of immigration problem under control. And I think a lot of you would agree with me when I say that a lot of the rhetoric that comes out of Trump and some of the people in his administration is deeply unfortunate. But frankly, we wouldn't be in this position if some previous administrations had addressed this issue. Because after dealing with this for so long, I think enough Americans were willing to select a vulgar character like Trump because he really took an aggressive approach to this issue that had been ignored by other politicians, Democrats and Republicans. Something else I'd like to see is to reduce the trade deficit. Uh, America just has to manufacture stuff again, not only because it's a source of good jobs and tax revenue, but also because it's vital for our national security. But I wish that he would just pick a path and stick with it. I'm getting tired of this whole saying we're going to do tariffs and then taking them away and then saying we're going to do it again. I wish he would just pick one and stick with it. Something else I think we need to be doing is getting rid of the taxpayer-funded DEI in the federal government. This is unconstitutional as far as I can tell. The 14th Amendment is supposed to ban racial discrimination within the government, and apparently we've thrown that out the window. Some concerns I have, like a lot of you mentioned, rule by executive order. Not only is this kind of authoritarian, but it's also futile in the long run, when the next administration comes along and just undoes all of it. Something else I'm concerned about is Doge slashing programs that ordinary Americans rely on. I'm not concerned about, I think a lot of the rhetoric about Social Security and Medicare are fear-mongering, but there are other issues like the Consumer Protection Agency that really did help ordinary Americans. They replaced Lena Khan, who I think had been doing a decent job at tackling antitrust. I think that's an important issue. And something else that I'm just concerned about with Trump's rhetoric is just we're getting into a polarization doom loop where we're just beating each other up, all accusing each other of being fascists or communists or whatever, this or that. I don't believe any of this. I think most Americans are good people at heart, and we shouldn't be demonizing each other. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So who'd like to go of the two people who haven't spoken yet?
I can go. This is Kevin, and everything, pretty much everything that's been said, I would agree with. Smaller government, get rid of unnecessary regulations, things like that, in terms of hopes. But I think the most important thing that Trump and the administration has brought is a whole series of people in the cabinet who are just plain old competent. These are some of these guys are just stars, guys and gals, and in what they're doing, and very, very accomplished people. But even more than that is a change in attitude, making it more positive, and a can-do attitude, and changing the mentality from a losing mentality to a winning mentality of what we can accomplish. It's not like how do we divide up the pie? It's how do we grow the pie so that everybody can be a part of it and get a good share and have a good wage and everything. My concerns, somebody mentioned the acrimony. I am concerned that people on both sides get entrenched in their team winning as opposed to what's good for the country. And so I've seen a lot of situations. I've done about 50 corporate mergers, acquisitions, spinoffs. That's what I did, human resources. And everything that's going on with Doge is just larger in scale. There's so much resistance. There's people who try to sabotage because they're looking at it, their interests, their personal interest, their financial interest is more important to them and their family than the good of the country. Okay, that's what happens, and so hopefully we get past all that. We will recognize that it will all pass with time, and I hope that we give the changes the time that they need to come to fruition. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to be very concrete. One of the things, or maybe the main thing that drew me to Trump, his first term, was his stance on immigration. I live in a community that's been affected by a lot of illegal immigration. My grandparents, I should say, came here legally. So did my wife. That's the proper way to go. I don't have anything against immigrants, but come here legally because you need to be vetted. And so basically, I think what I like about Trump is there's the will there. There's the will to actually get things done, even if occasionally it's unpopular. And so I think on immigration, and also another issue would be peace in Ukraine. I don't see any will to other before. I mean, to really have peace in Ukraine, and I think it's a war that's unwinnable, other than putting American boots on the ground. So the will to get these things done is what my concerns, I think, are the resistance, some of it above board and some of it below. Um, I think you know I could question the motives of people why they're doing this. They definitely don't like Trump. And they want to get rid of him. They've been trying to get rid of him. Um, and I still have concerns about that. And it's driving a wedge deeper and deeper between the two parties in this country. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that a little bit because I'm not here as a Trump voter and a Trump supporter because I was drawn to Trump. I find him really annoying to listen to. Um, but that's not it. It's that there are policies and approaches that I think are the right thing at the right time. And frankly, there were no alternatives offered. I was a very reluctant Trump voter in 2016 because there just was nothing, there wasn't any other option for me after everybody else got pushed out of the race because he handled the politics well. And I liked a lot of the policies that I saw in the first 4 years. And so that made me a less reluctant the second time that I voted, the second and third times that I voted for Trump. And it convinced some non-Trump voters from 2016 to change their minds. But it's about the policies and the approaches and the focus and acknowledging the issues that are out there with the administrative state and the overregulation and the fact that we are going to be in a the fact that we are going to be in a big problem if we don't have secure borders. We've got the fentanyl crisis that is just hitting us. We have people coming in that have not been vetted, and we're not taking good care of our own. And so it's all about the policies. It's not about the person. So I couldn't say that I like him. I roll my eyes a lot when I listen to him talk, but he's going the right direction, and I'm good with the direction.
If I would like to say too,
Yeah.
it's his approach, and I think it was you that mentioned it. He's in my mind, he's a bull in a china shop at a time
Yeah.
when that is what we needed to jolt the American people awake and to jolt the swamp, the DC swamp awake, and to just say what he's going to do. And literally through his campaign, I had a different experience with him. So I do like the man. I think he does say what he's going to do, but he wants to check off every promise he made to the American people. And that is something that it's his narcissism maybe, but he wants to be right about promises he made. And I think that in this time in our country now, I believe that God chooses people at a time and a place for a reason, and they're not always perfect. In fact, most of them are perfectly imperfect. But I think that we needed this jolt in this nation right now and get us back to the founding principles of the country, the federalism, the states' rights, and sovereignty. I mean, everything that he wants to do helps everyone in the country, not just one side or the other. And I'm sad that my fear is that it not only has put a jolt between our parties, but right within our own, where people it's hard for us all to have even a conversation about our own party, our own right-leaning ways, because he is such a dynamic figure. Hopefully we can get behind the policy at the end of the day and do what's best for America and lead with peace, but through strength, which I think there's a reason he is this first 100 days is so bombastic, because he wants to set a precedent for the next 4, 8, 12 years of what the country could be. Hopefully.
Yeah, thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I think, this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think kind of to Sue's point, I've got to agree. I don't particularly like the guy. I when I listen to him, I spend more of my time eye rolling than anything else. But the policies and not having a real alternative, and then to back up what Holly is saying, this is the right guy for the right time to get the things done that he's doing. My big concern, and it's something that I've said continuously, is, something my dad always used to say was, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. The same thing as executive orders. You live by the executive order, you die by the executive order.
Mhm.
This whole thing cannot become the new norm. You know, I was just having this conversation with a close friend the other night, right? And executive orders, especially just this, full flurry of executive orders like Trump did on his first day, cannot become the new norm. There was a few here, there was a few there, before this, and now all of a sudden, Biden comes in on day one and starts writing all of these executive orders to try and undo everything that Trump did, and we saw what that did over the course of 4 years. It was a disaster. But Then you get Trump coming in, and he's going to do a lot more executive orders than Biden did. What happens when the next guy comes in, or gal, or whatever, right? If we live by the executive order, we die by the executive order. We need Congress to do their job, and we don't need lockstep thinking in Washington. We need the best and the brightest going to Washington to debate ideas and work through these things so that the people's work is getting done, not just lockstep thinking within these parties. I hope, I hope that this is the guy for the time to get what needs to be done right now. But I hope cooler heads prevail. I hope civility comes back into being the norm, or at least something that people strive for. But we don't see that today. So I agree. Trump is the right person for the right time. He's doing what needs to be done today. My big fear is that just going to happen for today, and that the hate for him comes in next go round and tries to undo everything that he's just done. So our government has become very dysfunctional. We need to get beyond that dysfunction, get it back to the people, and actually work in the manner that the people's business is actually going to get done.
It poses a big problem for American foreign policy too, if we go completely one way with one administration and completely the opposite way for the next administration. Our allies and enemies are going, what, which way are you going? So, yeah, that's a huge problem, and I don't know how to solve it at this point, but it's a huge problem.
I am glad Marco Rubio is Secretary of State. I think he also is the right person in the right place.
Absolutely.
So we have a natural lull. I'm sure we could go on for like about another hour or 2 hours, but this is the allocated time for the fishbowl. So let me give one last chance so that you don't do it during the checkout. Is there something that somebody really, really needs to say before we close this fishbowl?
This is Kevin. I would say that I agree with everything that's been said about the executive orders, absolutely. But I also think for the first time, we've seen a change in a broader way of thinking. For the first time, won the popular vote, both houses of Congress in quite a while. To me, there is a change, and I can sense it with people I work with and people I'm with, that there's a sort of a relief, like, okay, we're back to common sense. Let's move in that direction. Let's not hurt people, but let's have common sense about it.
I would really like to say, I think Sue mentioned it in many. I'm here for it. I know that independence can be messy. Independence is scary. A lot of people are going to be worried because without a guiding light to tell us where to go, what to do. But as Americans, we seek that freedom and that accountability and independent. And my heart is with the people in the federal government who are struggling right now, because I know, it being the nation's #1 employer, that should tell us the nation, that the government is too big. But at the same time, that tomorrow is a new day, and it's going to get tougher before it gets better. There's no way that Trump or anyone can solve 100 years worth of bad government policy in 4 years. So as a people, I hope that we're patient with each other, that we're patient with government, and that we have our eyes open and we stay engaged. I don't want people to go back to sleep, because it's felt like a lot of people have just kind of not really gotten involved until it got so bad. And now that we're on the precipice of the golden age, as he likes to say, I hope that we as a people are good to our neighbors, are good to our families, and we offer that patience, and we get it in return, the grace. But at the end of the day, our country's going to go through a hard thing, and being independent is tough, it's messy, but it unleashes the greatness of the citizens of this country, technology, space. I mean, we're going to go into this new age, and I think that everyone will benefit in the end. We just have to be patient.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan?
Yes, I wanted to touch on something that hasn't been mentioned, and that is we've lost the idea of representative government. I mean, almost completely. And it's been thrown to the administrative state. Basically, the regulators are making law. There's no difference between a law and a regulation. Both can fine you and confine you. The only difference is that laws are made by people who represent us. Regulations are laws without representation. And Congress has given them that power. Lawmakers do not represent us if we don't know who made the law or regulation. Uh, if we never had a chance to vote for them, and if they exempt themselves from the laws, or never debated the regulations out in public. If any of those cases apply, they don't represent us. Have our congressmen take back their power.
Thank you.
This is a revolution of no regulation without representation.
Mark?
Just a quick point. We need to not forget the impact of the media. The media has demonized Trump. Of course, a lot of the time he's very brash and aggressive, which is not in style these days, or at least wasn't. But we need to be aware of being indoctrinated by the media to dislike this man. I too didn't like him at first, but hey, as William Bennett said, sometimes you need Mother Teresa and sometimes you need Dirty Harry. So I think we got him, and he's doing what he needs to do.
Never heard that metaphor before. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I think everybody's had a chance to express themselves. So I believe it's time for the non-Trump supporting Fishbowl to come forward.
Okay, so same questions. We'll go around and have you introduce yourself, your name, where you live, and an interesting or fun fact about yourself. And then we'll have you share, after everybody's introduced themselves, what concerns you have about the Trump administration, as well as what hopes you might have. So a little bit, take those questions opposite order. So who would like to go first just to introduce yourself? And then I will call on the next person. All right, that's Felix.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Felix Yellen. I live in Springfield, Delaware County, just outside of Philadelphia. I've got my red shirt on and my Philly shirt on. I'm a lawyer. So married to a beautiful wife, 3 kids, including a 3-year-old who might be running back and forth here. An interesting fact about me is I can juggle, and sometimes I do that for fun.
All right, thanks, Felix. And Joe, you've got your hand up, which I assume means that you want me to call on you next. So I will. Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, April. I'm Joe Stein. I'm also an attorney from Carlsbad, California. And an interesting fact about me is I've never had a hamburger, hot dog, or steak in my life. I was raised in a vegetarian family and am now a pescatarian for health reasons.
All right, Joe, thank you. I'm going to call on April next.
Yeah, my name is April Lawson, and I just moved to San Francisco, California. So I've joined Paul in the Socialist Republic of San Francisco, California, and it's living up to its name. And I do work with groups like Braver Angels, worked with Braver Angels for a long time, and I'm now a volunteer. And a fun fact about me is that I am a wilderness medic, which means if you're out in the backcountry and you have a medical problem, I'm not a doctor, but I can help you use whatever's around to take care of you until we get you to a doctor.
Okay, thank you, April. And then Will, we'll go with you next.
Sure. My name is Will Harwood. I'm originally from Ohio, from just outside Cleveland. Today, I live just outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia. And a fun fact about me is I've got 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old boy and a 6-month-old girl. And one of the things that's kind of special about it is that my grandfather was a prisoner of war in Germany in World War II, and my wife is German, and her grandfather was a prisoner of war in Russia on the German side. And to me, it's amazing to think that my son and daughter have a great grandfather on that were enemies just a few generations ago, and now we're all family. So to me, that's a great reflection of what makes this country so great is that we've been able to turn enemies into friends, and in my case, family. It's something that gives me a lot of hope that we can do it again. It's within us, as Wilk was saying. So it's a great honor to be with you guys, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Great, thank you. Sabrina.
Hi there, I'm Sabrina. I'm calling in from Zurich, Switzerland. Related to that, I do co-chair the Braver Angels Abroad Europe Alliance here. So that has been very fun. I've been a part of Braver Angels for 4 years. A fun fact about me is I've lost the exact count, but at this point in my life, I've been to more than 45 weddings. There's no trend. They've all been different kinds, different cultures, even different countries. But I definitely know what I want now when it comes because I've seen enough data points. Yeah. So it's been fun.
Okay. Ryan, you're next.
Ryan Baggett, joining you from Flower Mound, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Gentleman on the other side of the fence and the and the Trump supporters, I guess you would say, is Mr. Bolton, and I was sitting just this last Monday 2 weeks ago, 24th, in the Frisco Library, having a heated exchange with him. So I'm a software developer and the director of operations for my company, Sanctus Solutions. I built a software for electric vehicle charging stations that makes them hyper resilient. They're able to repair themselves and don't have to have a field deployed repair team driving around probably in a diesel truck going from one to another. That's kind of ironic. And then we put these underneath large commercial scale solar carports so you can put those over a Walmart, Target, home store, whatever your favorite grocery store is, parking lot, park in the shade and charge your car for free while you go in and get groceries. And that's the way that you get out from underneath the oil megalopoly giant that sends us to war at least every decade. At least that was my experience when this guy right here, the interesting fact, that's me in my commissioning photo when I was half my present age and 3 times my present strength. So, and then I have 3 kids. A daughter that's 22. She'll graduate from Baylor University in Waco and go from there to the University of Texas Health Science Center in Galveston, where she will be pursuing her MD. My son William's 20, going to be 21 in March. He's a third-year cadet at the Air Force Academy. And then I have a kiddo, Jack, who was on the high side. He took his life 3 years ago. And these little guys, they are my why. They're why I'm here.
Thank you, Ryan. Beth, I'm going to call on you next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Clatterbuck. I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia. And a fun fact about me is I have a shared ancestor with Johnny Cash. His daughter turned up as a match, and from the central of Virginia is where it all originated. So that was cool to find out. I'm excited to be here. I appreciated everything the first group said, which is a lot coming from me because I have not been able to say that about anyone on that other side. So thank you so much for doing this already. I've benefited as a white evangelical Christian who is unapologetic about that. I am definitely in the minority, being in this group versus the other. I'm in the minority at my church. I'm going to be in the minority, and just being in my sort of place. I'm kind of in the minority everywhere now, I think. Don't really fit any real box or category. So I'm excited to be here and learn what I can. And I really appreciate, I just wanted to do a shout out to those people from the first group that gave really good balanced, not cheerleaders for Trump. I really appreciated Scott, Kim, Will, and Sulani.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Al, you're the last one here to introduce yourself.
Going up the rear. Okay. Al Smith from Brookfield, Connecticut. And a fun fact, interest. I guess I lived and worked in Japan for 3 years, and I honestly don't think I remember one word of Japanese. Very difficult language.
Yes. Okay.
Ohio
Well,
gozaimasu, Al.
Ryan might could help you. All right. Thank you for introducing yourselves. We thought it would be helpful for you to perhaps start your answers with talking about concerns that you have and then move to hopes. But if you want to do it the same order that they did it for your individual answers, the previous group, I'm fine with that as well. So who would like to kick us off on concerns and hopes? All right, Felix, see you.
Sure, thank you. So I'll start with my concerns and then get into hopes. So it's a really important topic, and it's really important to hear everybody's perspective, especially from the red side. My first concern is a concern that I've had since the Obama administration, for every administration, is the abuse of the Constitution and abuse of the rule of law, but specifically the abuse of executive power through executive order being used for everything and anything and outside the scope of what they should be used for. I think the rule of law is a constant theme that's being disrespected. I think the separation of powers, representative government, checks and balances are slowly being whittled away as people sort of see the executive as a king, and everybody, each side has their king, and then when their guy or gal gets into power, they want that all of that one person in control of the policy. Our system was not designed like that for a reason, and I think it's getting worse and worse as things progress. I certainly have issues. I would say I'm conservative. I agree with most, not all, of the Trump administration's policies. My biggest disagreements are right now foreign policy and tariffs. On foreign policy, I think we're really taking an approach that's going to have devastating foreseeable and unforeseeable consequences. We're alienating allies, where we sort of have an erratic approach. Perfect example, Ukraine was a country that we've obviously been supporting. They were invaded. They're hopefully break away from their Eastern European history of corruption, and Russia's trying to pull them back and keep influence over them. And so we've sort of chewed out Zelensky, which again, he's not perfect. Ukraine's not perfect. And then gave everything that Putin wanted. And, when Putin takes advantage of bombs, Trump says, well, I'm going to sanction you. And it's like that Biden dope moment, that dope. And people, you think that Putin's going to respect that. He won't. He's an evil guy, but he's not a dumb guy either. With the economy, I'm generally somebody who doesn't believe that government or presidential policy affects the day-to-day things on eggs or gas prices. There's a lot of factors that affect the macroeconomy. I do think that tariffs are a negative aspect to that. Unfortunately, they're going to not only raise prices for us domestically over time, but they're potentially going to harm American businesses when other countries sanction us in return. I do think you can use them sometimes as a negotiating tool, but if you overdo your hand, if you overplay your hand, the U.S. is going to lose respect. There's things like people might get off the dollar, China might come in and take over, and I think that's really harmful. The general approach that the Trump administration took with I don't like the sledgehammer over the scalpel and the shoot first, ask questions later approach. I think that somebody said the bull in the China shop to me. I think you need to measure an approach. I do support some of the policies of reducing government over time in a sustained effort, but I don't think this massive approach is going to be helpful because it's going to be tied up in the courts, again, the rule of law, and I think that it's going to really slow things down in the long run. My last concern is I really have concerns about some of the cabinet officials. I'm not a big fan of RFK. some questions about certain loyalists that I think are not going to necessarily respect the Constitution. But other policies, I'm definitely a fan of what the Trump administration did with the courts. I think they're our last bulwark, and they're not always going to rule for Trump, even though that's what the left attacks him on. But I think they are an important piece of the separation of powers and checks and balances. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just to remind you, and Felix, I appreciate all the points that you've made, so I'm not making a comment about the points that you're making, but in order to have time for all of us to be able to share, we need to have probably a little bit less long responses. So just to let you know that. All right, for future. So Ryan, I see your hand up. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, a little boomer move there. All right, thank you, April. So I am a compassionate, conscientious, conservative conservationist, and that places me right on the border. I voted against Kamala Harris and voted against Joe Biden rather than voting for Trump. Let me just state that categorically. It's because of the way that our system is designed. We are forced into the choice of basically boiled okra or liver and onions. I don't like either one, but I guess I'll take the one that I'm given. I'm concerned mostly for the first month of the Trump administration because of his cabinet selection. Which also, ironically, gives me the most hope. There's some noise in the background. Okay. I really applaud the president's selection of Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State. Marco Rubio is the very picture of immigrant success in this country. His grandfather seeing how Cuba was ruined by communism. Also, his experience. He spent 14 years in the U.S. Senate. That's the reason I couldn't support Kamala Harris, because she went from a DA in San Francisco to the Attorney General in the state of California, had absolutely ruinous reputation there, didn't serve even one term in the United States Senate, and that's her resume. So experience and the way that his family shines really approve of Marco Rubio. I also approve of the selection of Colonel Doug Collins, 20-year Air Force Reserves veteran, for selection for the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. I'm a veteran myself. I spent 18 years in the Army, 8 on active duty, 10 in the Texas Army National Guard, spent 6 months in Kosovo and 18 months back-to-back tours in Iraq. I came back from Iraq in December of 2004, completely disillusioned. Where were the weapons of mass destruction that were supposed to be there? We didn't find any. We left Iraq in a complete and utter state of disarray, especially after during the Burma administration, which is ensued after I left. I'm like, this is just madness. So I really think that he can fix things for veterans like myself who come back and just wonder why did we do any of that? And that's the state of now. That said, I'll move to his selection of Sean Duffy as the Secretary of Transportation.
So Ryan, I wonder if you could summarize rather than going through each cabinet selection individually, because this seems like it's going to go really long.
I just got 2 more. Okay, so Secretary Duffy, Secretary of Transportation. His best qualification, he's a reality TV show star. Okay, and then Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, managing partner for the Soros Fund, chief investment officer for Soros Fund Management, and member of the Economic Club of New York and the Council on Foreign Relations. You want to find a great way to get tied and mangled in European affairs and their wars, and that is exactly what Ukraine is, you select a guy like that. And that's exactly how we got pulled into World War I, and that's exactly how we got pulled into World War II. You want to follow the same course of history? That's the kind of guy you choose. Thanks.
Okay, we've got Joe next.
Thank you. I share many of the remarks that my attorney colleague Felix made. I'm not going to go through those and just repeat them, but I agree wholeheartedly that Trump's policies with regard to tariffs, Ukraine, are misguided and will be counterproductive and hurt the country. And I also feel that some of these cabinet officials, particularly his selection of the ones for the Department of Justice, FBI, are going to be unfortunate, and I don't think these are qualified people. So I totally agree with Felix on this. On a broader point where I have concerns is that the president's number one responsibility is to preserve and protect the Constitution and uphold our rule of law. I was appalled by his wholesale pardon of all the January 6 incarcerated rioters. I thought that was most unfortunate, in fact, unconscionable, particularly since it was whole scale, regardless of what you did, and that included some of the violent offenders who hurt and injured, and in some cases killed police officers on that horrendous day. I thought that was absolutely unconscionable. He's added to that by going after the Department of Justice and trying to purge people who were doing their job, attorneys and staff that were involved in those prosecutions. Again, abhorrent. He shouldn't be doing that. Finally, and most recently, I was appalled by the fact that he went to the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and basically instructed the Department of Justice to dismiss the charges, in effect, a quid pro quo. He says, we're going to dismiss the charges, and in turn, Mayor Adams, you have to support me. That's not the rule of law. That's not respecting our process of prosecution. And basically, that's an indication of some corruption. So I'm very, very concerned about his role in terms of on the legal front. On the positive front, I think he's absolutely right. Our country is, our fiscal situation is in chaos. It needs to be squared away. I don't agree with the Elon Musk sledgehammer approach to doing it, but there is a lot of bloat and excess in the federal government that needs trimming. I just don't like the way he's going about it.
Okay, Sabrina?
Great. I echo a lot of the concerns that were already raised, so I won't repeat those. I'll go into another concern that I have, and I think this one I have more strongly now because of where I live, which is not home in the States. And that is sort of our moral authority as the US. I think I see this as a higher priority than other voters might see it, but I think there actually is real weight and real power if you do or do not have moral authority, or if other countries do not consider you to be a moral authority. And what I've seen more and more in Switzerland, and then also with other European colleagues that I work with, is there's all the more disregard, distrust, and also lack of interest in the US compared to before. And I think that that is very harmful for our soft power, which I think is very important for us to continue to develop intentionally. By soft power, I mean cultural, I mean commercial, I mean simply how our politicians are engaging with their allies abroad, or mainly in Europe, I'll say. And yeah, I don't think it's helpful. I think so. That's what I'm worried about for one, and how they seem to be. By they, I just mean specifically, I'll say Donald Trump, the press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, and some of the secretaries when they're talking to or about our allies. So that's worrying to me. I think we should be, that's at least my opinion, I think we should be striving to be a moral authority in the world. I still think our base values that we were founded on are the ideal. But I think moving away from that and also defunding certain things that were helping in that is not constructive. I know in the USAID there's also a lot of corruption that needed to be cleaned through, makes sense, but it would be nice, I think, to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. The other way in which I think the moral authority is sliding is how I feel as a voter for Donald Trump. I am talked down to. What I mean is by the administration. So their their mouthpieces, their correspondents, or Press Secretary Levitt or others, I feel that the way in which they answer questions is very much, well, we know what we're doing and we don't have to explain it to you, or how dare you assume otherwise. And I find that actually quite offensive as a voter for someone who supported this administration, that there's not even a bit of leeway given to give, yeah, something of an explanation as to why something is happening or that something is going to be tough for a while. That's frustrating to me. And that's frustrating because I put this person, or I contributed to putting this person into power. So I feel maybe reasonably or not reasonably, I'm owed a little bit of an explanation and to be communicated with through these channels with a bit more respect and clarification. Those are my concerns, or that's my concern, the moral authority and how it plays out. Hopes, I personally really care about, yeah, I guess now it's called MAHA, so Making America Healthy Again. It really hurts me to, as someone who's also had her own health struggles, see fellow Americans basically expecting to be on medication for the rest of their lives. I don't think that's needed. I don't think our medical system incentivizes other solutions that are real and that work, but that are alternatives to managing chronic illnesses with just lifelong medication. I think we can really strive and thrive. And I like how that language has come more to the mainstream and has really rallied around what I think is a bipartisan cause. So that's been very hopeful for me. I'll stop there.
Hey, April, next.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm loving this, both the prior conversation and this one. The I think that a key reason that I am on the right is that, and that I'm a conservative, is that I think that revolution is sexy but irresponsible, and that it's this doesn't feel to me like a needed shock that is waking people up, because as far as I can tell, people are not awake. It feels to me like a shift away from the things that make America the greatest country on earth. And I have been the things that have made me proud to be an American, there's a little echo somewhere. Anyway, are it feels like slipping through our fingers. And so for me, those things include I think our Constitution is a genius document because it actually deals with the fact that human beings are sinners, and no one can handle power, no one. And so I fear the concentration of power, which means that I hate and I fear it just as much on the economic side as the government side, because I think whether you control people through guns or money, it's not like you're still controlling them. Maybe that's not quite right. Maybe that's actually probably not quite right. But I just feel like we're shifting to an oligarchy, and I don't want concentration of power. That's the whole point. And the point of the Constitution, to me, is checks and balances. It's rule of law. Nobody is above the law. The president is already defying court orders. He's pardoning people who shouldn't be pardoned. And it smells like abuse of power to me. And I think that again, I don't like the like he's our thug thing, because I think the reason that we talk about character and the reason that we have a system that like holds everybody to the same standard is because some of what matters is in your behavior. So I'm very concerned about rule of law. The birthright citizenship thing bothers me. I think that the Constitution is in real danger, because I see no sign that the people who I agree that the administrative state is a problem and would love to talk about that. I'll get to that when I get to hopes, but I think that I see no indication that they're concerned about our institutions or our culture. And that's the thing I wanted to bring up too, is that I think that the culture here matters. So the fact that Jeff Bezos said essentially that the Washington Post editorial board can now only publish editorials that are in favor of business and such, like that's horrifying. That to me is where America shifts from being the last best hope on earth to, you know, Italy or Brazil or one of these like democracies that like, sure, we have elections, but like, let's be real. And the idea that it is, I don't remember which, maybe it's Franklin, which founding father said this, but America lives and dies by the character of its people. And so I think that there's a lot of humility that's built into our culture. It says we have free speech because we don't know what's right. We obey the Constitution because it is greater than us. We like respect sacrifice and honor it. Honor is another thing. I think that we've just abandoned our allies and Ukraine in a way that is I find repulsive. And Trump's lack of respect based on the things that he says for the military and for people who have sacrificed. I'm a conservative because I believe in honor and I believe in sacrifice and I believe in loyalty and I believe in humility and all of those things. And this is very hard to watch. So for me, I feel like I'm watching a shift away from the republic that I love. And that's very difficult. In terms of hopes, I certainly agree that of course the administrative state is a disaster. Like that's not constitutional either. I'm not saying it is. I think that Congress has abdicated its genuine role in like making those decisions to the administrative state, which is this massive, like bloated bureaucracy. I just think that like there's I also loved the business metaphors and I'm wrapping up. This is my last point. The like change management metaphors from the last group. I think that's really good. And I think that like slow change is good and exists for a reason, and that there was a way to fix these institutions, and it was like thoughtfully and carefully. People were going to be unhappy. I don't have a problem with people being unhappy. In fact, my problem is not really the people who used to be employed by the federal government. Although certainly we should have compassion for them. It's that this is being done in a totally like, I'm just going to destroy it all kind of way. And I don't know. To me, that feels again, sexy, sure, but irresponsible. So, however, I'm sorry, I was supposed to end on a hope. However, I hope that like maybe what'll happen next is there'll be some like blend of the two. Like I'd love to see USAID cleaned. I'd love to see the Department of Education cleaned. I'd love to see a lot of these administrations cleaned. They desperately need it. Administrative entities. But I want to see that. So I hope that in the future we can get to some, I don't know, better happy medium thing.
Okay. Al, I think you had your hand up next. Al, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I feel like Joe, in that how Trump is implementing his policies is a major concern to me. I like his basic policies, but sometimes doing the right thing the wrong way results in failure. Let me give you some examples on the implementation, and I think it's ass backwards, pardon my French. I'm a Vietnam veteran. At a time when Vietnam veterans and Afghan Iraq veterans need more and more medical service for PTSD, Agent Orange, burn pits, you don't start by reducing the bloated government and eliminating 80,000 jobs at the VA. That's not the first thing you go after. The national debt to me is a financial crisis in waiting. The CBO has already said that Trump's plans to reduce the debt is just not financial reality. And we know from his first term, he bloated the debt, he grew it. So I don't see what I was hoping to see there. I worked in the career transition industry for 17 years. I was on site for many job eliminations. There's a right way and a compassionate way to eliminate a job. Sending someone an email is totally wrong. I think his tariffs now, he seems to be pulling back and going forward and pulling back. So the tariff being the cure-all doesn't give me a lot of hope that that's the way to go if he doesn't even think it's the way to go. And I think one thing that really is important to me is that Trump is not a unifier. He is a polarizer. And you look at some recent studies and focus groups, and one of the main desires of the American people, red, blue, and purple, is they want unity in the country. In his 2-hour speech to Congress, he had plenty of opportunity to outreach with something of unity to the Democrats. Did just the opposite. That concerns me.
All right, Will?
Sure. Thank you. And just to just really great comments in both groups. But to build on that point of unity a little bit, I wanted to start with my hopes, and I actually wanted to start with what I would consider to be my prayer first, and that's the prayer for Donald Trump. I in the first group, I think there was a reference to a divine intervention, so to speak, to get Donald Trump there. When I looked at Butler, what happened in Butler and that near assassination, I did see the hand of God coming in and intervening. And I saw that not as an intervention for Donald Trump, but actually an intervention for all of us. Because if we would have had a political assassination in the middle of a heated campaign, I just don't know what the outcome would be. So I was very grateful that he made that turn. And he has referenced it many times that he does believe that that was an intervention. I believe he believes that was an intervention, and I do too, to save us, to give us an opportunity to come together. So my prayer for him today would be that he can realize that that may have been a divine intervention where that was the hand of God coming in and doing that. But God helps those who help themselves. And the next prayer for him is the grace to recognize that he believes the unity of the country is the most important thing. It's the most important challenge that we face. And he believes, when asked about unity, that the outcomes, when we achieve these wins, we're going to win, and then people will come on board with all of what he's accomplished. But it's actually it's leadership is done in the process to the outcomes. The process is how you define who it is that you are and how you bring people along with you. And I think that, there's a question of what our role should be in the world today. We've had certainly a leadership role for the past 80 years. But even if we decide that we need to take a break from that, and maybe that's where he wants to lead it, we can still lead with moral leadership, to Sabrina's point. That happens and that comes through the process of how we do things. Outcomes are important. I respect a lot of and the outcomes that they're pushing for, I almost all agree with. But the process is what counts. That's how you lead every day, explaining and going forward. So that's my prayer for him. My hope, that's a prayer because that may not be probable, but it's possible. My prayer is for all of us. And that's that if we continue to go in this direction of so much disruption and that lack of process that allows that leadership and unity that's so important, number one, is that we can find as American people inspiration in it to do what we need to do to step up and fill in the gaps. That's what we can do. And we have to, just like with Europe, Europe right now feels very abandoned, and I don't blame them at all for feeling abandoned. Just like Ukraine, to me, it's a moral shame what we're doing. But in that, you're seeing them step up and saying, okay, we're going to take care of our defense. It's needed, it's necessary. And right now, we do not have Congress stepping up and doing their jobs to make sure that the Constitution can be protected. There was a lot of reference in that in the first group. That is who we are. The Constitution is our beating heart. If we do not step up, if that becomes overrun at the top, we have to stand up for it. So my hope is that we find the way to run toward the pain. There's too much going on. It's difficult to do, but we have to keep running toward the pain. And so that's a hope that we can do. It's in our power to do. And I think we're doing it as part of this group. I think Group A is doing this, and everybody that's listening in. So I'll stop there.
All right, we're really close to the amount of time that we have, but I want Beth to make sure she has a chance to share. So
Thank you so much. I actually had a very long list and I wanted to be last because I don't want to waste time saying all the great things that have already been said. I do need to just kind of do a disclaimer. So I am part of the problem, I feel, in that I voted twice for Donald Trump against probably a better sense of conscience in myself. I was a single issue voter, pretty much the pro-life issue that growing up through the church, it's pretty much that's the box you check, the R's, because they are pro-life. Since 2021 and the post that second election, I felt like my eyes just the blinders came off, and I have been educating myself. So it was so frustrating. I felt like I was the most educated this past time, and I voted for the loser, doggone it. And it wasn't because I agree with Democratic policies. It was just that I felt like we were bleeding out a little as a country, as a party. And I feel like a plug would have been the space holder of what seemed to be a more reasonable party to vote for. So just quickly, my big thing is I don't like the marriage of the church with nationalism. That far right rhetoric, that religious nationalism that has just become embedded almost in the DNA now of what I consider a far right Republican Party that I no longer feel a part of, not because I've changed, but because the party's changed. In a pluralistic society, it's really unfair if I'm loving my neighbors that I expect them to look and act and do exactly what I do. Even before I became a Christian, no, I would have rebelled. Nobody's going to make me do something that I don't feel obligated to do. And as just a human being, I don't think I can expect that of my brothers and sisters who live in this country, who are my neighbors. The lies, misinformation, disinformation is like straight out of a Russian playbook, I feel like. Our alliance that we're having with Russia, North Korea, China, Sudan, Belarus, Hungary, that to me is abhorrent. As growing up in the 80s and 90s, finishing college, you could never have told me we would have voted that way in a UN resolution. Ukraine, I love Ukraine. I have Ukrainian neighbors here. I bleed for them. My heart breaks for all that they've undergone. For our elected president to say the opposite of what is true, and that the aggressor, that the person at fault was Zelensky, is just beyond abhorrent to me. Just quickly, I agree totally with everything everyone's already said. We care so much in this country about the Second Amendment. Everybody needs a gun. I want everybody to have free speech. I'm totally scared that our rights to the press, to free speech, that this kind of retributive administration who goes after their enemies or their perceived enemies, I feel like for them now, the Democrats are the enemy and Putin is the friend. So I feel like my foundation has sort of just come out from under me. Things that I thought were true, I think I was not really seeing things through a realistic lens. Lastly, just I could go on, but I think our having an oligarchy, an administration that is authoritarian, that limits our freedoms, that tries to protect the US in such a way that maybe sounds good, that we're America first, but we're really just pushing ourselves to be isolated. And heaven forbid we have another 9/11 that we ask our neighbors to come to our aid, because I'm not sure who would feel comfortable or who would feel generous enough to do that for us now. I don't want to be sarcastic or anything. My hope is that most of the things that Trump is trying to do will not succeed. I do need to be in prayer for him, and I confess that is not my first instinct. And prepare for him and for all the people that are making these wide sweeping decisions that are affecting the lives of everyday Americans, not people who have billions or millions or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hope the church, that 80% of which, the White Evangelical Church, I hope they step up and meet the needs of the needy and try to fill in those holes where people are going to be hurting. And I know the government's bloated. I'm a conservative in every way. And I would love to see change, but responsible change. And if you do the right thing the wrong way, you're going to have all kinds of fallout. And who knows what's going to be left after 46 or so more months of this administration. Thank you so much for letting me take all that time.
Well, we've heard a lot of things here, and I would love to have allowed you all to have another chance to kind of share your last thoughts, but we are out of time for this fishbowl. And it is time for us actually, and I appreciate both groups sharing. We're going to have another chance to hear from both groups, but we're going to take a 2-minute stretch break now.
And here are our questions. What did you learn and notice while listening to the other side? And what are you taking away from this event today? So hopefully this is different from what we've had before. And again, only the A group, Bs should not be visible and should not be heard at this point in time. So Beth, please turn off your video. Okay, who'd like to go first? So again, what did you notice? What did you learn? And what are you taking away today? And Wilk, you are right out of the gate there.
Yeah, I would not call it so much learned, Paul, as confirmed. And that's that, even though we see things differently, I saw a lot of love for our country and I saw a lot of concern for uh, you know, the man. What's happening with Trump, the overarching power. I think I heard, words like oligarchy and monarchy and a lot of the same concerns that I personally have. But it was more of a confirmation of love of country, concern for things, but probably just to a different degree. So it was good. It was good to hear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mark, your thoughts. What did you notice? And learn, and what are you taking away?
Yeah, I notice there's a lot of concern about Trump's personality, which is nothing new. Also, a lot of concern about the Constitution, which I think both groups express that. And also quite a bit of agreement on policies. It was more his method or process, as one person put it, that was disturbing to the B group. Just briefly, though, regarding oligarchy, I've been talking about the oligarchy for quite a while here. We had a total media oligarchy going on in this country, to the point where in academia or the news media or
So,
anywhere,
Mark, Are
Yeah,
are you taking the opportunity to make a new point here?
actually, I am. I mean, I think that the oligarchy was the regime basically, and I think now, particularly since Twitter takeover, there's been a change. I think both sides have more access to media than previously, although for the most part, I think the media is still pretty blue.
Okay, thank you. You slipped in another point there, but
Yeah,
okay.
I
I
did.
I would
Noticeable.
like to go
Guilty as
next.
charged.
I actually was surprised at, at the man being portrayed like a danger almost to some, and the not wanting him to be successful. That surprised me. I think in this day and age, I worry that we have to get on board behind the policy, and we have to pay attention to the media because they are definitely uh they have their own branch of government right now. And we have to take that back. And where we get our news and where we get our information, I think the American people are moving towards podcasts, and they're moving towards, small count journalism and going back to the basics there because of the power, as you mentioned with the media. I think the bureaucracy is a problem. Bureaucrats are
So
making.
Holly, I suspect you're getting into the territory of making points rather than, let me re-nudge, what did you
Okay,
notice and learn?
that's what I noticed, that people were bringing up, that I noticed in our group, that yes, we all know that's a problem, but their focus was a little different. And what I guess what I found common ground, love of country, yes. And that was something that I think is amazing and great. I think the processes of what we're doing and how it needs to be done is disagreed upon. I am the one who said bull in a china shop. I think that the country needs this, and I saw that wasn't their view,
Okay,
but
yeah,
I was pleased that everyone still loves our country and wants the best for it.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Holly. And again, I'm going to continue this direction. So what did you notice and learn? And what are you taking away from this event today? And, we don't have as much time as we had in the fishbowl, so please be brief. Sulani.
Very briefly, I saw a respect for the separation of powers and an agreement that Congress has abdicated its role. And that was an acknowledgement. And I heard also acknowledgement that there is bloat that needs trimming. We just have a disagreement on process. What surprised me was, well, I guess it didn't surprise me, but I was surprised to hear what I perceive as left-wing talking points being used to rationalize a position coming from people who identify themselves as red-leaning. And that surprised me a little because I wasn't expecting that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dan?
Okay. So I agreed with a lot of the principles that were laid out by the other fishbowl. Um, Principles of constitutionality, the love of country, and a lot of hearkening to the basic Judeo-Christian values that underlie our country. They like Marco Rubio, and I thought that was great. In his role as the Secretary of State. However, the only thing that I disagree with was the assessments and the analysis upon which that's where the disagreements are for me. I thought the assessments and the analysis were off, and that's usually where it happens. At least in my humble opinion. But what I'm taking away is one thing I've learned from Bill Bennett. I used to listen to his radio show. He says never underestimate the capacity for the American people to renew themselves. And I see that here today with us, our two disparate groups. I can really see the seeds there. We agree on a lot. We just disagree on We just disagree on how some of those things play out in some of the analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. Who'd like to go next who we have not already heard from?
I'm happy to go. And I'll keep it brief. I think across both fishbowl groups today, there is some agreement that the sledgehammer approach is problematic from the human and compassion standpoint. I think we need to remember that both sides are guilty of not reaching across the aisles. It's very easy to target the individual who is making the change. Change is very hard. I think we all agree that change needs to happen. Trump is willing to take the shots figuratively and literally. I do think that though there is a commonality across both groups that we recognize change needs to happen fiscally. And the other commonality that I really picked up on is that we all want to see a return to the checks and balances that were intended with the founding of our government, the way the founding fathers envisioned it. So we have Congress playing its role, we see the executive branch playing its role, and we also see the judicial branch playing its role in alignment with the Constitution. So that to me was encouraging. Because that is one thing that worries me is this step away from the Constitution and our liberties. And I will always stand squarely in the camp of we need to maintain our liberties. So whichever side is pushing their cause that on us and taking those liberties away, I'm always going to stand against that. So I do think there was some commonality there in that we need to see a return to those checks and balances and some return to civility, return to reaching across those aisles. Issues that just should not be partisan are partisan simply because of the woman or the man who presents it and their political party. And that's where I feel like we have some commonality today that we're all looking for some of that to dissipate and to return to some civility.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have two people left who haven't spoken. Scott, Kevin.
Well, everybody else pretty much took all of my points, but yeah, definitely share a lot of common ground about concern on procedural grounds. I could definitely tell that neither side is particularly thrilled about rule by executive order, and that's uplifting. Hopefully, we can get to a point to where we can give a lot of power back to Congress and stop, this cycle where we have a president essentially become a dictator through executive rule. Some of the things that surprised me, I think, were the opposition to the foreign policy and the tariffs. It seems to me like these are just things that Trump ran on and are basically red policy issues now, wanting to reshore American manufacturing and wanting to scale back, our military presence on the world stage. I mean, I guess that these issues kind of shift, political parties over time, but it seems to me like this is where the electorate's at. That's what Trump ran on, and that's what he's doing, as far as I can tell. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kevin, I believe we haven't heard from you.
Well, this is Kevin, and I'm was very curious to hear from the other group, and I'm pleased to have met people who voted for Trump and now aren't happy with him. I've talked with many people, and I don't really, most of the Trump voters that I know absolutely are thrilled and wake up every day happy. Not to say there's not stuff that has to be done. I was encouraged by how articulate the other group was, the points they enumerated. I think that there are areas here of commonality. Clearly, Congress has to be better. The executive orders are all because there's a vacuum from Congress. And so it's, and the media is no friend to anybody. I think Jeff Bezos making his comments, I think he felt that politics was covered in so many other places that they didn't have any particular expertise, but they did have expertise in advertising and in business and all those kinds of things for editorials. Why weigh into the politics when it's 50-50 in the country, and everybody got angry because of something they didn't do, which was endorse Kamala. So they didn't endorse Kamala. Now they're not, and it's a no-win game for somebody who's a media source trying to be more neutral.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I think that is about our allotted time for the feedback. Unless I'll give like one last chance for somebody something something that you learned. Did somebody learn something from the other side? Not necessarily, but if it happened, it would be lovely to hear about it.
I think it's good faith. That's what I heard, and I assume good faith, and I think that there was absolute good faith on the other side. So that was gratifying.
Thank you. And on that lovely note, shall we move on to the next phase?
All right, Joe, it looks like you have said you'll be first. What did you learn?
Thank you. What I learned is that the Group A, who were the Trump supporters, acknowledged that his personality and communication style is a problem. I heard one of them mention the term vulgarity. That's something that I wholly concur with. I think it's been a problem since he's ascended into politics from the get-go years. And unfortunately, it's part of the man's personality. There's no such thing as a personality transplant. He is what he is. Unfortunately, that's very alienating to people like myself who agree with him on some of his positions. The way he expresses himself, puts down the opposition, had the audacity at the State of the Union and single out a...
Joe, make sure you're not just saying another point.
I'm not. Okay.
All right.
I'm glad that they recognize that his communication style is polarizing and a major problem.
Okay. Felix, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I'll build off of Joe's point. I think there was a broad agreement about the importance of the Constitution, the impotence of Congress, the overuse of executive orders, the importance of federalism. The fact that there are people who have issues with them on both sides, and it's not a good idea to just generalize that all Trump supporters are this or all never Trumpers are this. And I think, and it's also not surprising that you have generally broad-based policy agreement with some notable differences, just because we all are on the right side. We're conservative. So that's
Okay. He kind of froze, I think. So I'm going to go on to the next person. Will?
Sure. I think that first of all, I was extremely impressed by everybody that spoke in Group A. And I voted for Donald Trump. So I'm not oppositional in the sense of that vote. I think that just to be clear on that. And I think that one of the things that I heard consistently were the principles, the constitutionality, the importance of federalism. Those are all things that I couldn't agree with more. And so I don't think that I heard a single thing that I disagree with. I would also just point out that on the process point, we disagree with process. If you take something like DEI, which I think was mentioned in the first one, and how that we already have protections for that, and it's not a constitutional way to go about things. I agree totally. I think the outcome that everybody agrees with is that we don't want to have a country that's rife with racism, but we have mechanisms to make sure that those that discrimination can't be in place. We don't need to actually have systems that enforce what I think would be raw racial preferences, for example. So I think that can be an example of where we can agree a lot on the outcomes, and we also agree a lot on the principles. And I think that was it was just really wonderful to hear that.
Okay. April.
one thing, so I'm going to start with something I relate to in the other side. So I heard the bull in the china shop metaphor and things like that. And like I totally relate. It makes so much sense to me to like want fast change, right? It is exhausting watching our government continue to mess all of the stuff up. And so I just really resonated with that desire. Uh, I don't necessarily agree on exactly how that should be conducted, but like I really do relate to that. I also heard uh, somebody say peace through strength. Um, Holly, maybe. And I was like, yes, that, uh-huh. Um, and the a clear like agreement on like what on earth do you do about Congress, guys? Like, I don't know. It's which I appreciate that um we share that, and I think it's a very hard problem, and that, you know, these two groups differ on like what you do with that, I guess. But um I would love to see more work on that. And then the last thing I wanted to say is like, mm, this wasn't surprising to me, but like, I just like everybody on the other side. Like, I just like you guys. Like, I was listening to you talk, and I was like, I found myself wanting to agree with you just because I like you so much. And like, I don't entirely agree on the points necessarily, but um, it's just frankly, living in San Francisco, I don't ever get to have conversations ever with like this. And like it's so nice. And so yeah, I just really appreciate this event.
Hey, Sabrina.
Thank you, April. Yes, so again, I think also, as Will said, I think I agreed with basically everything that the other side said. Something that I learned, I guess, is, and this is just human nature, it doesn't have to do with one side is supporting and one is not, but it's always interesting to see which themes or which policy issues are sort of more highlighted on one side versus the other for each person, which I think simply shows that Donald Trump can be judged as very great or not as great depending on which policies are important to you. So that's also something I learned, and also helped me then to be a bit more like, oh, right, it's because this is really important to this person. That's why that this is that they're still very, very happy with the majority of what he's doing. So that was good for me. Really was, I think I'll echo Wilk when he said learned and confirmed. So that means uh, I didn't doubt necessarily a lot of things that I saw and appreciated, but it is nice to still see them. So again, emphasis on the Constitution, really having that be our core of, you know, what we stand for, what we hold to as Americans, love of country. And then I'll just say, as April said, yeah, I live in a very European cosmopolitan place. So that means I never have these conversations. I very much appreciated this. So thank you. Oh, last thing, I just checked on this. If anyone's interested from these two groups, I would be very curious to know your news diets, and maybe we can compare and contrast them. So if anybody would like to just send me a quick chat with your email, I can compile all of those. And then with your permission, I can just send out email to everyone and maybe put together like an Excel list if you'd like to share that.
Hey, Al, you're next.
Yeah, I think common ground, one point would be, I think we all agree we need congressional reform. We have a do-nothing Congress, polarized, no results. Uh, Everyone agrees on that. I think that we also, I hope I'm right in saying this, we need more moderation in this country. You know, I guess that's why, what, 48% of the country now is independents. They want to see us come more to the middle to reach that unity. And we're never going to reach unity on extremes. So I think there's a need for moderation. I think we also all agree that change was needed. What was it? 75% of the country thought we were going in the wrong direction. The problem, I think, with Trump is we don't need a bull in the china shop breaking valuable china.
Says you, what's determining what's valuable?
Okay. Al, was there other things you were going to say?
No, that's it.
Okay. I think we haven't heard from Ryan or Beth yet. So which one of you wants to go next?
I'll just go really briefly. I noticed too, I think just the talking points on both sides. We each of us separately had commonalities. So I think obviously we're probably getting news sources from different places, but that authoritarian state, I'll have to Google something, or I'm sorry, it wasn't that, it was the administrative state that I kept hearing over and over and over again. So I'm not listening to those things. So I get a lot of print media and I look at transcripts from the actual people as to what exactly they said, not what somebody said they said.
Okay, Ryan.
Oh, well, this is one of my more controversial opinions, but what I learned was the support for intervention in Eastern Europe is kind of frightening on both the people that, on the sides of the people that support Donald Trump and those that don't support Donald Trump. Gosh, I hope we don't go getting ourselves dragged into yet another war. I have seen enough wars. I came into the army in Desert Shield, exited after 6 months in Kosovo and 18 months in Iraq. My son, my last living son, is a cadet at the Air Force Academy. I do not want to lose him to some stupid, unnecessary war in Eastern Europe. I'm begging you as a father.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes for this group. If there's any last thoughts that you would like to leave with about what you're taking away from this dialogue today. I guess it's not so much of a dialogue, but the fishbowl. Yeah, Will.
Yeah, and I think that just to build on the last point, because that is one of my great concerns is that we're moving. I worry about war, and I think that the world is in a state of great tumultuousness, and there is a lot of revisionist powers that are being aggressive against really U.S. leadership, American leadership. That's how I see things. And I think that, yes, there were pledges during the administration, for example, to bring an end to the war on Ukraine. But I think that peace through strength is the key thing for me. And that goes again back to outcome. Of course, we want peace, but what's the process to get there? And there were promises made repeatedly about peace through strength. And I think that when I look at how, for example, I'm seeing the administration actualize that. Um, I don't see that piece, that element of things. If we're all aligned around the Constitution, the first action was a national security decision on day one related to the TikTok ban. 70% of Americans support it, and it just
Will, be
received.
careful that you're not making just
Sure.
another point.
Okay, yeah.
So, takeaway.
Sure. So I think that it's the piece through strength. I think that would be a good one to unpack because to me that's just the process piece where there's alignment around it. But I think that there's nuance there that I think that might be worthwhile to unpack.
Okay, April.
Yeah, I just also want to honor what you said, Ryan, and I hear that, and I have a lot of respect for my dad's a Vietnam veteran and feels quite similarly. And the um, I think that as is true with all the rest of this, it's about how do we get to the end? Because I believe in intervention because I think if we don't do that, the world will get more and more violent. And then we will have to intervene under worse circumstances. And so there's that. But I guess to me, what part of what that it points to two things. One is that I really do think most of our ends are the same. And also I because I run debates and love debates, I'm pleasantly reminded that there's disagreement within that side and within this side too, right? Like, which is actually what we want, right? We want a thriving, multifaceted. So I'm we've all mentioned a lot things common ground that we noticed, but I also like the fact that like there's yeah, not everybody on this screen thinks all the same stuff, nor the other screen. So to me, that's a good thing.
All right, Sabrina, we're going to let you be the last comment, and then we'll close it out today.
Okay, I will try not to make this sound like a plug for Braver Angels, but it might. I think everything that was shared here today, I don't think a lot of those observing might have heard these viewpoints before, at least from real people in good faith live. The reason I say that is to those who have been participating, the panelists, I know we all have lives, and I say that as someone, my point is, I think conservatives, and I say this as a conservative, we have a tendency in a good way to want to focus on being present in the community we're in, with our families, with our jobs, with our communities, with our churches. That's good. At the same time, I think it's also important, and I try to do this as well, that we try to seek out conversations with those of the other side, of those who might not say that they're conservative or Republican or ever voted for Trump, would never even consider it. Take time to listen to them, even though we might have heard everything before, just let them speak. But then also, if they want to know and they're genuinely curious, sharing with them our stories and how we came to the opinions that we have. I don't think anything is going to get any better unless we also on the right start to share more in good faith what we care about and why we care about it, instead of shutting out the other side because we feel that we've been demonized and called stupid and hurt, which is fair, but I still think it's really important. And Braver Angels is a great way to do that. There's other outlets to do that as well, or just in your own community. But that's something I'm trying to do more here in Zurich. It's been really encouraging. I hear people say all the time, I never thought of it that way. So shout out to Monica Guzman. But just, yeah, just as an encouragement for everyone as on the panelists group.
I don't mind a plug ever and a Braver Angels thing for our Braver Angels way.
Well, you're welcome.
I would love for everyone to turn their camera back on of all of the panelists so that we can get a group picture of all of us, so that we can do that. And while you're doing that, I just want to acknowledge the panelists. You all were very courageous, sharing your perspectives in front of an audience you couldn't even see. You don't know how they're going to react and how they're thinking. And so just thank you. I also want to thank our Braver Angels team for helping us put on such a fantastic event today. We have a lot of people behind the scenes, and I would love for the team to also turn their camera on. So again, we could get a picture of the whole group. So if you all would do that, and I'm hoping that Paige or Abe or Casey, someone will take a picture of everyone. We do have a one question evaluation that we are going to be putting into the chat by our event team. I think the audience can see the chat as well. Is that true? Okay. It's just
yes, if we post it to everyone.
Okay, it's just a one question evaluation. Your feedback is important to us, and so we appreciate you coming. And thank you for all of our observers today. At one point, I think we had over 200 people that were joining us, and your interest today in the Braver Angels Fishbowl, we realize that this may have brought up feelings for you. We encourage you to keep being curious, keep listening. And also in the chat, we're putting some additional resources that can guide you, especially if you found you getting some emotions as you were thinking and hearing what we were saying. So feel free to check those out as well. And Mary Beth, you're gonna tie us all together, I think.
Yeah. So first of all, while everybody's still here, I would love to take a couple of pictures here, make sure everybody's eyes are open and smiling. So I'm going to count to 3, and then I'm going to snap a picture. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, everybody. Yes, there are some resources that Paige is putting into the chat. We have recordings on our YouTube station. We have more events coming up as part of this Meeting the Moment initiative. a number of debates, and then we will be doing some more Fishbowl events similar to this one. So thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice
Bye.
to meet all of
Bye.
you.
Great to meet you all. Bye bye.